In many ways, part 4 of this deep dive is the keystone, the cornerstone of this series on the therapy problem, because it shifts from who therapists are and what ideological pressures they bring into the real world outcomes by addressing the question, does therapy actually deliver the same benefits for men and women? This is where the deep dive gets sharp, I think, because now we're no longer just talking about demographics or biased training, perhaps. We're asking whether the end result of therapy, measured in symptom reduction, satisfaction, quality of life, whether all of those outcomes are equally distributed among the genders. In this topic, research gives us some answers, but still with a lot of ambiguity. On the one hand, meta-analyses on psychotherapy for depression show no broad, consistent correlations between client gender and treatment outcomes. In other words, both men and women can and do improve with therapy, by and large. But when we look closer at specific studies, some patterns do start to emerge. Some trials show women reporting stronger gains on quality of life measures like positive affect and reduced anxiety, while men's improvements appear less pronounced, or maybe they're more vulnerable to early dropout. A 2022 study on psychodynamic outcomes adds further nuance here. When therapist and client were the same gender, both symptom reduction and quality of life trended higher, suggesting that gender matching does in fact matter, at least for some modalities of therapy. This creates a structural problem for men. Because the profession is overwhelmingly female, male clients almost never get the gender match that research indicates actually can boost their outcomes. Imagine a man with depression or anxiety finally taking a step to seek therapy, only to be placed in a situation that statistically offers him lower odds of satisfaction and improvement. For a client who's already skeptical of therapy, that mismatch then becomes another reason to drop out. And believe me, dropout is a very real problem. Men are more likely than women to leave therapy early, which distorts outcome data and reinforces the perception that, again, therapy just does not work for them. But beyond just the numbers themselves, we can explore some outcome interpretation even a little bit more. Surveys show that men are more likely to distrust therapy, to feel uncomfortable, opening up to a female therapist, or to even believe that therapy is biased against them. Believe me, that perception is powerful because therapy, again, is built on the therapeutic alliance. It's that bond of trust between the client and the therapist, which is one, again, of the strongest predictors of success in therapy. If men go in expecting to be judged, misunderstood, or filtered through ideological lenses, then that alliance is weakened before the very first session even begins. Let me break from my script for just a moment and give some statements directly from my notes that I got when I was researching this part of the deep dive. So let me lean in here just a little bit. I'm just going to read some of these notes. A 2022 study found a trend that same gender client therapist dyads had somewhat better outcomes in symptom reduction and quality of life for psychodynamic approaches. A meta-analysis on depression therapy found no general association of client gender with outcome, meaning that neither men nor women really had a benefit there. Here's one. In marriage and family therapy and counseling settings, clients reported higher satisfaction when matched with a therapist of the same gender. In substance abuse treatment, and this comes from Finland, female therapist and female client predicted stronger alliance early on. Here's one. A review on couples and family therapy concluded that therapist gender in itself does not or did not directly drive clinical outcomes, except perhaps in adolescent cases, but it may interact with other variables such as fit, comfort, and expectations. And I'm not going to get in the weeds in mediation, moderation of different variables and things like that. But I would argue that fit, comfort, and expectations are all directly associated with the gender in which you're the therapist with whom you're working. Right. So that, again, I'm not going to go through all of them. There's a few more, but again, you get the idea that there are a lot of benefits in even the very few studies that have been done. There is great benefit in matching the sex of both therapist and clients. And let me go this one step further. For my dissertation, I published my literature review, and I'll just summarize this very briefly, in which I, along with a couple of undergraduate research assistants, we scoured every peer-reviewed published literature article that we could find in which the outcome was divorced fathers' well-being. And we went back all the way from 1900 to 2011 at the time. So it was 111 years of everything we could find that was published in which divorced fathers' outcome was the purpose of the study and the publication. And we found, I believe, 10 articles in 111 years. That's the extent to which men's outcomes are being researched in universities. I just wanted to add that as for a little bit of context. So when I say that some of these things are a bit ambiguous, that's why. It's because nobody is studying those things. Nobody is studying the difference in outcomes between men and women and the the gender match between client and service provider. Again, so I hope that part 4 here drives home that this is not just about whether therapy works in an abstract sense, but whether it works for men as well as it works for women. If women as clients more often get same gender matches, increased levels of outcomes, and in turn greater gains in quality of life, then therapy becomes a system that reinforces female wellness more consistently than male wellness. And listen, the irony is that men who are already less likely to seek help end up facing a system that's structurally misaligned with them when they finally do go in for help.